Welcome. I'm Michael Maciel, and I'm reading from my book, The Five Vows, Raising Your Spiritual Commitment to the Next Level. This is Chapter 1, The Unnamed Calling. There's nothing like an unnamed calling to keep you up at night. You know you should be doing something more with your life, but you don't know what. You might have the feeling that your passion, art, the environment, children, politics, whatever, is on the verge of a breakthrough, as though some new thing were welling up from the depths, a spiritual realization that is yet to breach the surface of your awareness. It feels like a looming presence whose stare is fixed on you, a presence that can be felt but not seen. Such an impending emergence in our lives can feel ominous if we let it. Someone unaccustomed to spiritual presences might find it to be like that. But for those who are mystically inclined, what looms just out of sight feels more like something wanting to be born, something undeniably important. The excitement of the new emergence can be maddening. It can feel like there's a barrier keeping the new realization from coming out, as though something is sitting on it, preventing it from seeing the light of day. Intuitively, you suspect that it's you who's getting in the way, that whatever it is that's trying to make itself known is waiting for you to step aside, to relax your expectations, to relinquish some false belief or idea about what it is you should be doing with your life. It's as though the new thing wants assurance that your rational mind won't rip it apart the moment it exposes itself, trying to force-fit it into ideas you already have, instead of letting it show you something truly new. So you resort to any and all methods you can to get at it, to help the bubble burst and allow the new thing to breathe. Meditation becomes important to you. You begin to probe the very depths from which the new thing is trying to free itself. But unless you can leave your preconceptions and expectations behind, your presence there can look like a threat, and the thing you're seeking recedes farther into the darkness. It is then that you realize that you have to start dismantling those preconceptions and expectations, to let go of them and assume the inner posture of being willing to accept the new thing as it is and not try to remake it into something familiar the moment it comes into view. You begin to realize that you might have to coax it from behind the amniotic curtain that separates it from your conscious awareness. Instead of midwife, you become the courtier, wooing the unknown out of its shyness and into your arms. You lay down your preconceptions and expectations and invite it to be what it is, with the promise that you will not impose your everyday biases upon it. Instead of grabbing for it, you let it come to you in its own time. In order to coax the emerging realization into your waking consciousness, soliciting its physical expression into your life, you must undergo a certain amount of preparation. One cannot put something new into something old. You cannot expect a higher vibration to blend seamlessly with a lower vibration, lest the discordancy shake the whole thing apart. So you begin with certain inner disciplines. You examine your pride, the exaggerated sense of self-worth that inclines you to believe that anything new that comes from within will automatically match what you already know. You make the conscious effort to acknowledge that the sheer tonnage of what you don't know vastly outweighs your current understanding of both the cosmos and your place in it. You start to listen more carefully to other people, giving them the benefit of the doubt, entertaining the notion that they might have something of value to offer you, even those with whom you would normally regard as being less enlightened. You make yourself available to wisdom, no matter what outlet it chooses to make itself known, knowing that as you do, you pave the way for the true wisdom, the noble Sophia, whom you so badly want to know, to come forth into your waiting embrace. The quality of spirit you must cultivate for this to happen is humility. Humility is the entrance fee to the spiritual path, the prerequisite to experiencing the reality of God. And rather than the self-effacing, groveling sense of worthlessness that the ego finds so frightening, humility is just the opposite. It is the burgeoning awareness that reality is so large. It's not that we are so small, it's that God is so big. We don't have to artificially construct an obsequious attitude. We just allow ourselves to be blown away by the magnificence of it all. Any inflated sense we have of our own significance is automatically rendered irrelevant. As a spiritual quality, humility is not acquired through study alone. It must be recognized as a state of consciousness, one that one must enter into. Humility is an aspect of God's personality, which might seem contradictory to the notion of what it means to be humble. How can God be humble? But as illogical as this may sound, it is only our human sense of logic that finds it so. Like the hammer that sees everything as a nail, the ego sees everything as a mirror. Since the ego thinks that it's a God worthy of all worship, the idea that God is also humble seems, well, ungodlike. It's helpful to think of God's personality as being like the sun. Its aspects stream forth as beams of light that vivify everything they land upon. They have a kind of waveform, a distinct frequency that leaves footprints on our soul. Our thoughts about humility activate these footprints, and we sense them as evidence that something living has left a path for us to follow. The Sanskrit word marga means the path left by an animal. It means more, however, than the marks in the dirt or the pheromones in the air. Marga alludes to this kind of trail, but insinuates a trail of a higher vibratory nature. When an advanced soul, such as Jesus or Buddha, lives out his life of service on earth, he leaves a trail. His ideas, his choices, and the connections that make up his experience of the divine. The quality of these aspects, their scent, if you will, is a feeling with which we can easily resonate. That feeling is awe. Awe is not an aspect we normally associate with people such as Jesus or Buddha. We tend to think of them as deities, their soul personalities raining down upon us in a strictly top-down, hierarchical way. But it is precisely their awe that makes them mediators. If we look to them as the pinnacle of spirit, we commit the very sin that they warned against. Buddha said the finger pointing at the moon is not the moon, referring to himself as the teacher, not the goal. And Jesus said, I am the way. Never did he say, I am God. When we connect with Jesus' feeling of awe, the feeling he has when he lifts his eyes to heaven, the vibratory signature of that feeling magnetizes our inner compass and establishes our true north forever. The scent of the aspect of God's personality that we detect has a bit of God in it, the hem of the garment, so to speak. So when we come in contact with it, we are coming in contact with God. The vibratory pattern we are picking up matches exactly the vibratory pattern of the aspect. In other words, the scent is alive. It is not a remnant or an artifact. It's a direct connection with the thing itself. Once we touch it, or are touched by it, we will never be able to let it go. Once the aspect is activated on a person's soul, it remains there as a living presence, continually pointing the way to its source. It becomes part of our soul's makeup. We can ignore it, but it is always there. We will never feel complete within ourselves until we acknowledge its presence and submit to its calling. When we finally surrender to it, its vibration permeates our entire being. We are changed from the inside out. No one needs to tell us low here or low there, because we know where the path is. It is within us. Over the centuries, those who have trod this inner path have found ways to help new travelers by putting them in direct touch with this aspect of God's personality, humility, which makes possible the sense of awe, forever giving them an inner path to follow. The mechanism by which this is done is the vow. Unfortunately, taking vows has become, in our scientific age, merely a public ceremony, an outward expression of one's intention to live up to one's word, or a promise. And while there's nothing wrong with that, this interpretation falls short of reality. We need a new interpretation, a new way to understand what it means to take vows. Re-envisioning the vows. The last thing most people want to do is to vow themselves to something, an organization, a religion, a spiritual teacher. Rightfully so. There are too many examples of the abuse of power perpetrated in the name of spirituality. Even when vows are administered with the understanding that they are taken to God and not to an organization or a person, they usually wind up becoming just that, a means to govern and control the spiritual lives of others. The entire concept of vows needs to be re-envisioned in a way that serves people, not corral them into a prescribed ideology or way of living. The vows are not about what we have to do, nor are they about what we have to not do. The vows are states of divine consciousness. Taking them opens the door to the experience of those states. Thinking that you will have to change yourself if you take vows is like thinking that you will have to change your personality if you move to a different city. You will take on a different character with time, that's for sure. But that isn't something that you can make happen. No one changes by force of will, either ours or someone else's. God does the changing. All we have to do is show up. Basic moral principles are designed to bring the animal part of our nature up to a certain level of refinement of development. We learn these principles as we live our lives, but the tendency is to think that we have to continually revisit them, because the slightest act of selfishness, pride, avarice, anger, or lust can cause us to feel guilt. We start to doubt ourselves, and we begin to feel unworthy of the higher mysteries of illumination, self-realization, and the priesthood. If we try to perfect that which has already been sufficiently established, we are only wasting valuable time. Besides, it's egotistical to strive for perfection, because perfection serves no purpose in this world, except to prove ourselves better than others. In order to be effective in our spiritual life, we have to embrace the idea that good is good enough. Learning basic moral principles also raises our consciousness to the level where we can recognize the existence of higher worlds. The farther we progress on the spiritual path, the less important physical survival becomes. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as Joseph Campbell points out, carries no weight in the lives of mystics or artists. One's vision is the important thing, even more important than life itself. He who loses his life for my sake will save it. We all have a vision. It's what carries us forward in our spiritual strivings. If we are not obedient to the energies that arise out of that vision, our life becomes a living hell. We should not try to turn the vows into enforcement mechanisms, as many have tried to do in the past. The laws of God have been written in our hearts, and no one needs to tell us right from wrong. Usually, disobeying our conscience requires a concerted effort on our part, whereas in the earlier stages of our spiritual evolution, We had no choice but to simply obey our instincts. Our conscience was not yet fully formed. The vows are openings into higher states of consciousness. They are meant for us to use as tools to help us achieve our higher calling into God consciousness. They are made for us. We are not made for them. We know that we are on the spiritual path. No one has to coax us. No one has to convince us that we should seek reality. We already know that that's what we want, and we look for anything and everything that will help us get there. If we can see the vows as aids along the way, they start to look attractive. We take them willingly. We understand that they strengthen our relationship with God, not weaken it. We don't need layers of intermediaries between us and the self. Rather than tell us what we have to do, the vows immerse us in the spiritual energies they represent. We come into the higher levels of consciousness at a natural pace, which allows for deeper and therefore longer-lasting integration with our personality. We become the virtues, not just adopt them. Vows, why take them? In the final scene of the 1991 movie Grand Canyon, the characters drive to the Grand Canyon and see it for the first time. The entire movie up until this point has been about the chaos in their lives, their dramas and traumas and self-absorption, all of which are epic proportion. But when they get out of the car and see the immensity of the landscape in front of them, all of their problems are obliterated in that moment. If you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, you know what I mean. Being in its presence can literally take your breath away. Spiritual experiences are like seeing the Grand Canyon for the first time. They have the power to transform your life. When you experience the presence of God for the first time, your life is changed forever. The power is overwhelming. Technically, the word power means the capacity to do work, the ability to change things. Spiritual power is the sense we get of being in the presence of an infinite potential, a living energy that both knows and hears us, an energy that is at once both vast and intimately close. It makes us feel incredibly small and at the same time enormously important. So small between the stars, so large against the sky, as Leonard Cohen so artfully puts it. A presence so powerful that we can feel ourselves instantly lifted into a different reality. This is real power, the kind we all seek when we embark upon the spiritual path. Sometimes we can sense this kind of power around another person, usually a spiritual teacher, but not always. We get the sense that the power they are exuding is coming through them, not from them. They are the channel for it, not its source. This is a wonderful experience, and we're fortunate to come in contact with him or her. Jesus was such a person. So was Buddha, and so many others, both living and dead. There is power in taking vows. It may not seem like it, given that so many vow rituals are treated as though they don't really matter, as though they were merely a formality or something nice to do. Or they might be thought of as simply a promise one makes to God, as though the person taking the vow is the giver and God the receiver. This would be like trying to stuff electricity into a wall socket, clearly a misunderstanding of the principles involved. Another common misconception of vows is that they derive their power from consensus. By stating our intention in front of witnesses, they somehow strengthen our resolve. But this, too, misses the reality. The power to perform does not come from taking vows, nor does it come from our desire to live up to our word. Power is there, but it doesn't come from us, and it doesn't come from another person. However, it can come through another person if they know themselves to be a channel for it and can get out of the way, letting the grace of God do its work. Vows are more than just concepts. They are a living part of the mind of God. Being alive, they act upon those who enter into them. Being part of the mind of God, their action never ceases. The action of each vow is different from the others. If we can understand the action, we can understand what the action does. The important thing to understand is that it is not we who are doing the action, but God. We let the vows act upon us. Action is perhaps the most important distinction to make when it comes to understanding God and spirit. Action is power manifesting as energy. This energy moves from a source, through a medium, to a receiver. The application of energy upon a receiver is called force. So you have three elements: power, energy, and force. Force, scientifically speaking, is neutral. A rolling ball striking a wall exerts a force upon the wall. It is not forcing the wall to do something the wall doesn't want to do. This isn't a metaphor, an obscuration of scientific meaning. Force, in the context in which we are speaking, means energy applied, nothing more. Along with action, there is another word crucial to understanding vows. Some might call it reality. But that word, like love, has many different meanings. When something is real, we mean that it is a part of God, an aspect of the divine that is all-pervasive, all-inclusive, and eternal. Reality, for the sake of this discussion, does not mean my reality or your reality. It means that which is real to God. Of course, we cannot know completely what God's reality is, but we can assume that it exists. Our act of assumption at least makes more of it available to us and gives us new and useful ways to understand it. For instance, things that are real to God appear archetypal to us, overarching, abstract, non-specific, like love. The word love is a general term to us, but for God it is highly specific. Love is either present or it's not. Love is a part of God's being, an aspect of God's personality woven into the fabric of reality. It is not a concept. So if we know this about love and we have experienced it, we can enter into the reality of love as though we were entering into an energy field, one that is alive and sentient. Since love is an essential aspect of God, when we experience the reality of love, we are experiencing the reality of God. Remember the three-part principle of power, energy, and force? Well, if a person has gotten in touch with the reality of love, then that person becomes a channel of love for other people. Through the connection we all have with each other, the real displaces the unreal. The energy moves from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. And if a person is receptive to this flow of energy, a force will be applied and a transformation will take place. Transformation. Transformation is the purpose of taking vows. Otherwise, why take them? But like the words love and reality, transformation has been transformed into something different from its spiritual meaning. Transformation is usually thought of as changing into something new, whereas in its spiritual context, it means changing back to the way God originally created us. It washes clean the encrusted self in order to reveal that which was there all the time, only hidden. It is the return to our own divine nature. When a person of high consciousness acts as a channel for God to immerse a willing person in the real energy of God's own being, the person receiving the blessing is cleansed of the false energy patterns created by years of illusionary thinking and behaving. A vow is a blessing. It is a movement of divine energy that bestows grace upon the receiver, enabling him or her to overcome the inertia of the sensory world. Vows enliven the divine spark within us. Let's explore now the 5 vows. In the next video, I'll be reading Chapter 2, Humility, a Quality of Being. See you then.